So this is a roundtable, which means it's going to be participatory, not mandatory, but if people have thoughts, they can jump in with thoughts here. And this roundtable is on freelancing for indies. My name is Tony. I run a tool studio called Pixel Crushers. And in addition to making tools, I just love making games. So I always try to have an actual game development contract on the side. So I do freelancing part-time for game development, and then my main work is running Pixel Crushers. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. The topics we're going to talk about at this round table is why would someone want to do freelancing? How to find that freelancing work, which is a question probably a lot of people have. How to price yourself. How to manage contracts. Tips on actually doing the work, which is kind of the important part and the fun part, and communicating with your employer. And how to get paid, which is also, really the important part, right? So, I guess we should do a definition first. By freelance, I mean either you are an individual or a group that is offering your services for pay to someone else, maybe a game studio that needs extra help, or an individual has a great game idea and has the money to burn on it to hire someone to bring that idea to life. Or maybe you are a game studio and you're working on a game, but you need extra revenue to be able to finish your game. In that case, you may do some co-working work or freelancing work for some other company, maybe an advertising company that is game development adjacent, or an education company to supplement your studio's income. So we're talking about all of that today with freelancing. What are the pros and cons that people can think of when it comes to doing freelance work? Anyone? Yes.
Setting hours, but then also setting your own hours, but then also having to still meet a client's desired deliverable and production pipeline flow.
Yeah, very good, yeah. Setting your hours. Also, I might mention for hours, working with different time zones, because you might be hired by someone in Australia that's on the opposite side of the world. Yeah? Anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, it may not be reliable like 9 to 5.
Absolutely. Yeah. But any kind of gig work is kind of like that, isn't it?
You can do it for longer than 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I know this is from some writing outside of games, but freelancing still applies, is making sure you get paid, because some people will pay you part of it and then you'll never hear from them again, even though you have a legal contract.
Yep.
They're really good at weaseling their way out.
Yeah. Yep. Anyone else?
You get to work with a lot of different teams. There's a lot of variety. That's a pro.
Absolutely. Frankly, that's why I do it. Well, I do it for two reasons. One, I get to work with all kinds of crazy interesting projects, different every time. But also, as far as tools dev goes, I'm dogfooding my own tools and my own processes, and not just making tools for other people, but really staying in the game of game development. Chris.
I've hired freelancers before, and some of them actually took the money and ran because I decided to try paying first instead of asking for them to deliver first. I've had people get paid and then got down with a sickness that made them no longer communicatable. So freelance has risks on the other end of the table as well.
Yeah, there is no way to completely mitigate those risks. So that is something to keep in mind. But I'll list some pros that I can think of here. As was mentioned, you have a flexible schedule for the most part. You can choose your commitment duration generally. Maybe you want to do freelance for 6 months and then you work on your game. You can typically find some kind of a contract for that. You're not stuck in a 9 to 5 for 30 years. You get to very often choose your work environment because you're going to be working remote, and you get to work on a variety of projects. There are a lot of cons, though. the stability. You are constantly selling yourself, looking for new work. Make sure you have something lined up. You're constantly chasing down payment. There are things you can do to help mitigate that, which we'll get into. It does require a lot more discipline than when you have a boss that you go into the office and they're standing over your shoulder making sure you do every single little thing. So it does take discipline. If you don't feel like you can force yourself to work, maybe freelancing is not for you. But if you're self-motivated, it can be a great way to have all these pros. You are running your own business, so you do need to handle taxes and all the other kind of legal stuff that the state and federal and local governments require. You have no coworkers, which is like good and bad because, some coworkers, but at the other time, on the other hand, it can get a little lonely if you're just like working in your home office all by yourself day in, day out.
You provide feedback either.
Exactly. And like Zoom or Discord video chats, it's not the same as like really being face-to-face with people. So, if you're a super social person and you need other people, relying on going to Starbucks just so that you're around other people may or may not work for you. So keep that in mind. And there's no mentoring. Unlike if you're in a big studio, say you're a junior artist, there's no senior artist like giving you advice and feedback on your work. You're all on your own there. It's up to you to find your own mentors apart from the freelancing. Are there any that I missed as far as pros and cons that come to mind?
So something I think with freelancing, I found that the communication is better. When you're being paid for your time, people are more outgoing about making sure you get the information you need. And I found when you're on salary inside a company, things can stagnate a lot.
Go through different channels.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like you said, they're more motivated to make sure you have what you need because they're paying you directly.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. I know this is a big question for a lot of people. How do you find those freelancing gigs? Does anyone have any experience securing freelance work? Let's go with that.
The best way is knowing people at a company that need work. That's the best way.
And I would say that's also like getting returned often for that too, because if you do good work that first time, they'll probably come to you again.
Yeah.
Especially if you're consistent and fast with it.
Kat, you had some?
Just being I've been to kind of like work sessions with other people, and other people have seen what you're doing and say, hey, I want to hire you. So just kind of like being a co-op space.
So I'm going to bring up the first one that I always recommend to people, which kind of encompasses this: referrals. When people know you, when they know you do good work, they're going to say, when someone else is like, man, I wish I had a good programmer, or I have this great idea for a story, but I just don't know how to write it. They'll say, hey, I know someone, and they'll send them your way. So that is the hands down best way to get work. You want to put yourself out there. There are many ways you can put yourself out there to so that you have this network of friends and people you know who know that you do good work in whatever you do. Doing game jams and other sort of volunteer work, so long as you don't let that consume everything, that is a great way to show what you can do with other people, and also not just show your skills, but show your personality. Because so much of this is, can you communicate properly with the other person? Are you the type of person that they feel comfortable working with? Any other thoughts on like referrals or testimonials or anything like that? Oh, all right, we'll go to the next one. So if you don't have any referrals, no one's referring any work to you, very often a successful way of finding work is to look at Reddit or, and now the TIG source forums are a little bit outdated, but places where people are posting the work in progress games that they're working on, YouTube even. If you find an interesting project, maybe you think like, this project is great, but it looks like they need help with art. Don't be hesitant to actually reach out and say like, hey, I love your project. I would like to be a part of it. That, next to referrals, that is the best way to secure work. I know it's kind of weird to like just cold call someone out of the blue, but it works in this specific case. Chris.
Be careful with some of that, because I've received DMs with people who are looking to be hired for my projects. And I had to turn them down because either I didn't need their work or I didn't have the money to pay them. Just because I posted to a Discord server where they said, where I either made a job offer or posted, hey, I'm working on this project, what do you think about it?
Yeah. So there is that. Very often they'll be like, no, we have it all underhand, or we have no money. But if you keep trying and you find projects that you genuinely want to work on, you might find something that fits. We'll go here then.
Just to interrupt, I want to ask you, it sounded like you didn't want to hear a DM from somebody who wanted a job after you posted a job offer. Did I get that right?
I posted the job offer, but then I forgot to mark it as closed.
I get that.
That'll happen. Go ahead.
On that subject, from people who might have already had opportunities filled, if you reach out or aren't in need of the extra help, again, it kind of goes back to the referrals. We don't need any help, but we kind of know somebody who does, so they might direct you to somebody else.
Great point. We're going to go here and then there. Go
I was
ahead.
going to suggest Discord has been a great place for, so you're not just messaging someone out of the blue, you seeing them work on the project, that kind of thing, as well as look for funded Kickstarter campaigns, reach out to those devs.
Yeah.
Then you know they have funding.
Yeah, that's a great source, Kickstarter. What Discord servers or venues do you recommend?
Probably your local ones, that way it's people that you can stay in touch with, or I usually just do that the whole East Coast mostly, so I'm in different New York ones, Maryland, the IGDA stuff, Richmond, Virginia, those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of people give me help with things like the dialogue system for Unity, such as Mike over there. Been very grateful for it through Discord. And yes, Stevens.
I was self-employed for 20 years. Almost every job I got that wasn't a referral, I got because somebody publicly stated that they had a specific problem that I was able to solve for them. I remember a long time ago, there was the people who maintained the WNOD trail in Virginia. They had a problem in the days of just Netscape and Internet Explorer. The web pages were great on one browser, but they had a bug on the other. And I thought, that's too good a challenge to get. And so I dumped out all the HTML, I found the problem, I corrected it, I sent it to them. They sent me a copy of some kind of book about the trail as a gift. And then 6 months later, somebody they knew got referred to me from them on the strength of the fact that I had voluntarily stepped up and solved a specific problem. So if you see somebody posting a need, not so much for a job, but does anybody know how to do X on the Unity forums or wherever? If you know how and you send them a chunk of code, you've solved a problem, you've already proven your value. I've gotten more work that way than any other technique.
Same. I won't say I've gotten the most work out of that, but I used to post a lot on the Unity forums, a lot of little solutions here and there. I've gotten work out of that. So yeah, definitely. Anyone else as far as that kind of source for finding work? The next one, and this is in like descending order of kind of the quality of success. Having a portfolio site, it sounds weird that your portfolio site might be lower than that, but you definitely, especially for artists, you want a portfolio site to back up what you can do. If you have a referral where someone that they trust says like, says this, this person can do the work, that's, I find, more valuable than a portfolio. But if you do a portfolio, that's the next one. If you do a portfolio, if you're an artist, make sure that you put your best work there, not not your little sketches that you're not particularly proud of. For programmers, don't point them to your GitHub. most people who are hiring you aren't programmers, so they're not going to understand what that is. Instead, if you have completed works, completed games that you can cite, or completed projects that aren't games, put that on a portfolio site. You can get like a free site from Wix or whatever, a card, and they'll see like, oh, this person is capable of making this game or this project. A lot more valuable to someone who's hiring freelancers than your GitHub just full of random code. Any other thoughts on building a portfolio like that?
I'm speaking from the art side of things.
Mhm.
I would say that being able to showcase the best of your work, but also being able to showcase specific examples of production work. So curating your portfolio into a tailored specimen of, hey, I've done pipeline process work, even if I'm not currently at the studio or working on a project. I've worked with other teams that would require other materials from me. So if I'm working with a character animator, I have experience doing character biz dev work and doing that development production, doing ideation and iteration, and then being able to translate those design notes to a character animator or a rigger or somebody who's building out the model or the wireframe for it. So just being able to show that you can speak the language is something really important.
I like that. I can imagine that could be like a section of your portfolio. There's like a case study.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unfolded like that.
And getting to Discord, I found that Discord is a good place to get portfolio and resume reviews, where you get people in your industry, maybe who are more senior than you, looking at what your portfolio site looks like, and they give you feedback.
You kind of answered one of my questions about the programmers as far as portfolio sites go and GitHub and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're just trying to get into the industry, you maybe don't have that much experience. Would people in the game industry be even interested in things that you've done that are game related if you're a programmer, and just different types of apps and stuff like that, or would they look at that as not having much?
It depends. I know that's a terrible answer, but if it's something that you feel is a good accomplishment, you never know if it's actually applicable to games. When I was working on Dark Web Streamer, for instance, that is a game that relies heavily on procedurally generated text. So if you had done any kind of non-game related text processing, that would have been extremely valuable for looking at them for freelance work.
Because that question is needed as a programmer. You could be like an experienced programmer with no game experience, and I'm just trying to wonder how do you market yourself.
Yeah, if I were in that position, I would definitely list my best non-game stuff, but then participate in some game jams with a good artist. And even if the scope of that jam game is small, if it looks good, it has good art, which you're kind of like riding on the coattails of a good artist, but you've done the programming on, it adds something to your portfolio that says you're familiar with games. Chris.
Credits has a good video about making your first game, and one of the things they cover is spend a year making small tools for yourself, learning the skills in the field or genre or whatever you want to get into. And then you'll have not only a tool set for yourself to use and to refer back to, but something to base a portfolio off of to say, hey, this is what I can do so far.
Yeah. All right, any other thoughts on portfolios? Okay, the last and worst way to try to look for work, and the one that everyone goes to first, classifieds. Everyone hits classified sites. The worst classified sites are like Fiverr, Freelancer, Upwork, because they're just flooded with bots, flooded with unskilled people who apply to everything just to try to maybe get some money or scam people. Don't even bother on Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer. That's my opinion. We can talk about that. Some good sources for classified, if all else fails here, Reddit's Game Dev Classifieds, which is kind of hit or miss, but still pretty good. And specific platform forums, like the Unreal forums. If you're really good with Unreal, You can go to the Unreal forums, maybe see someone is looking for an experienced Unreal blueprints engineer, and then you can apply that way because you know that they know exactly what they want and you could be a good fit. And you're showing that you know how to work within whatever tool that they're asking for. So that's my thoughts on classifieds. Anyone have any tips if you have to use classifieds?
If you have an asset for sale on the Unity Asset Store, you then become eligible to have access to the asset publishers discussion group in their Unity forums, which they don't publicize. You don't find out about that until after you've got an asset up. It can even be a free asset, so it doesn't have to be anything you're marketing. But the people there talk to each other about their internal needs, and that gives you access to folks through a filter. If you're there, you've already proven yourself in one small way, and that makes it a lot easier for them to take you seriously.
Good point. Yeah, anyone else? Okay, so let's say you have a lead. Someone is interested in hiring you. The next step, well, yeah, I mentioned here, another website that is kind of not as great as it used to be, but still pretty good is called Work with Indies. So it's workwithindies.com.
I believe there's also a Discord server.
There is, yeah. I think a lot of the stuff has moved there, but it's kind of flooded with, questionable stuff too. So once you have a lead, someone's interested in hiring you, how do you actually land that contract? So I can't emphasize this enough. We're freelancers. You may be freewheeling artists or there's basement programmers, but try to be professional. It doesn't mean you have to wear a suit and tie. Just be courteous, be prompt, have good, clear communication. Communicate well. If you are on the phone, make sure that you're prepared to talk on the phone. Be careful with your email. Write professional emails, and if you get on a Zoom or a Discord or a Google Meet call, before you actually get on a call with them, look behind you and see what's there. You don't want dirty laundry hanging off your closet door when you're on your call. Try to be as professional as you can. It doesn't mean being stuffy. It just means just giving the signal to your potential employer that you have things together and you can handle things properly.
I would actually add always blur your background if you can. Most of the Zoom, all those
Yeah.
video streaming, you can blur your background, change it. That'd be a good idea.
Yeah. Even so, I think, tidy up your background, even if it's blurred. But blur is a good idea.
Or just replace it, use one of the ones they just offer.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about a portfolio, but they may ask after the referral, hey, do you have any examples of your work so that I know what I'm hiring? As you mentioned, put on your top 3 to 5 pieces. No junk work. You may feel well, if I have more stuff, it just makes me look better. No, don't put in your grade school crayon work there. Put your most representative, highest quality work. Also include testimonials and references. So if someone has either hired you in the past, or maybe they've just sent you a thank you because you have posted a solution on a forum that solved a problem that's been bugging them. And if they give you permission to share that thank you, put that on there. Show that you've helped people before, either commercially or not. And you might want multiple portfolios for different audiences. If you're a programmer and you're looking for graphics programming work, programmer is a little bit of a hard one, but you may tailor that, kind of like how you tailor a resume to each potential employer. You may have different versions of your portfolio that you tailor to different types of related work. And then finally, hopefully you'll get an interview. Typically, very often these interviews will just be over email or something, but more and more I think they like to have a video call and make sure that there's an actual human being on the other side. Emphasize what value you bring specifically to them, because they care about their project. They don't care what you can do apart from how it benefits them. So really think what do they really need, and what do they want to hear that I know I can genuinely provide at a high quality level, and tailor what you're talking about to that. Don't just talk about, oh, I've done this project, this project, this project, I'm so good. And keep in mind that you're competing with people in Poland, India, Brazil, everywhere when you're doing online freelancing work. So differentiate what you can do that makes it so that you can demand a living wage in this area, in this country. That can be things like time zones, language, educational opportunities, whatever it is. Just let them know why you're worth it versus hiring someone for a third of the price in some other country. So that is something you got to do. You got to keep that in mind. Anything else I missed or that you have thoughts on or disagree with all of this?
Like specifically when it comes to competing prices, I would also say don't budge if you think that you're selling yourself at a very fair, reasonable price point. I always like to suggest starting, trying to price yourself based on an hourly wage, how long does it take you to complete an hour's worth of work, and then go from that metric at a fair, base wage, and then you can add on from there based on what you think you're worth, and the quality of your work and how it speaks to this employer. Because if they really, really want to seek out your level of quality, they will pay you what you're worth.
Yes.
And 2 points. One, to follow up on that, I think one of the most common mistakes that I've seen from people starting out and self-employment is this fictional belief that if they offer themselves a low price, they will prove their value through the quality of their work, and the client will be ready to pay an inflated price later on. If you charge $10 an hour, the client is never going to stop thinking that's what you're worth.
Yeah.
The way to get around it, if you are dealing with a client where you just can see they don't have the budget to pay you $50 an hour, is you say, you're a new client, it's $50 an hour, but you're getting a $25 discount.
Yep.
And on the record, you bill them $50 an hour. They paid you $25, but if you go to the next person and say, I get $50 an hour, there's no record behind you that proves that you're actually available for half of that.
Yeah.
And secondly, on the interview, Tony's absolutely right. When you go to talk about yourself, you don't want to just be talking about yourself. Talk about what a great job you've done finding out about the client you want to work for. Job I have now is as a faculty member at a university. Before I interviewed with the department chair, I read the last 5 papers he published, and I made sure we talked about those. You can see on his face, nobody else ever did that. I got the job.
And it probably didn't take that long to do.
Oh, they're interesting papers.
Yeah. All right, so that gets us right to how do you price yourself? So the number one thing for me, be upfront about pricing. Don't try to be squirrely about yeah.
You guys from the university, don't tell Matthias that I
So as to your point, determine what is the lowest price you can reasonably accept. This isn't going to be what you ask them for, but say I cannot live if I get paid less than this. That is your floor. And then consider your current skill level, your current capabilities. That'll be, and the highest that you can demand for that, that'll be your ceiling. So your asking price is going to be somewhere between your floor and ceiling, but it's critical that you are honest with yourself and you identify that floor and ceiling first. And then getting to Stephen's point, charge that ceiling. So let's say, I can, if I had a client with money to burn, I could ask them for $100 an hour. So you're always going to say, my price, my going rate is $100 an hour. And then you adjust that down to what you think they can afford. Let's say they can afford $50 an hour. So you say, my rate is $100 an hour. I'm giving you a 50% discount for now. So you're going to be paying me $50 an hour on my $100 an hour rate. That not only allows you to charge the next client $100 an hour or something higher, but a year or two down the road, if you're still working with the same client, you can say that was my introductory rate, my rates are going up, and they're cool with that because they know they've been getting a discount already. Any other thoughts on pricing of that sort. Yes?
I'm kind of curious, I'm on the more technical side of my character legal. What about day rate? Because I used to freelance a lot, and I had a day rate or a week rate. Is that something that's still relevant today, or?
I'm 100% behind that. That's the next thing here.
Oh, okay.
So thank you for bringing that up. If you can arrange an hourly or daily or weekly rate rather than a fixed cost, that's generally better because projects never go under time, they always go over. So if you say, all right, I charge $50 an hour, and we're going to communicate about what gets done in those hours, you're a lot safer than if you say, all right, to get this game done, I'm charging you X amount of money because I think it's going to take 6 months. Well, it's going to take a year, so you're going to be working that extra 6 months for free. So if you can get an hourly rate, do it, or daily.
Really important to clarify how many hours, because some clients maybe want 20, some want 40, and if you're not on the same page and you bill for 40, then they get a little upset. So,
Yes.
It's definitely true. The overwhelming number of clients, the overwhelming majority of clients would prefer to just be told, it's going to cost this.
Yeah.
And so the way you get there from here is you find out what's their budget. If their budget is $10,000 and you're billing $100 an hour, amazingly, your bill is going to be for exactly 100 hours of your time, no matter how long it actually took. And everybody's happy under that formula because they got told it was going to cost $10,000. It cost $10,000. You got $10,000. If you did it in 90 hours, that's on your conscience. If you feel, okay, billing for 10, you didn't work. If it took 120, hey, you did a good job because you got paid what you expected to. You put in some unpaid overtime, but you landed the deal. Good for you. So
what if it takes 200 hours?
Then you've been an idiot about taking the job in the first place, and you learned a lesson not to make that same mistake again.
So that's a valid point. But
don't underbid yourself. Never underbid yourself. If you think it's going to take 100 hours and it takes 200, okay, you made a bad estimate, but you still got a $100 an hour job behind you that you can wave in the face of the next person, and you'll have a better idea how long you think it's really going to take. But no matter how many hours you tell them and how many dollars per hour they pay, everybody's got a little calculator in their head. They're going to multiply those two, and the number it comes out as, that's what they expect you to bill them.
That's a good point. Yeah. I've seen, though, that people who are just starting out in freelancing, and honestly, people who've been doing it for 10 years, terrible at estimating those times. And especially if you're letting your client, the one who's paying you, estimate the times, or at least they're giving you like the initial estimate of the times, they're going to wildly underestimate. So, like Steven said, be careful.
I've also noticed, like, sometimes, like, again, you might not be as experienced enough to estimate your time properly, but then I've also seen cases where sometimes people are afraid to estimate properly because they don't want to scare away a client with, like, a higher price. So, like, just go for it, and then if it's the case where they don't want to pay that price, like, you can negotiate a little bit. So just start out with the price you think you're worth, and then go from there.
There's another slide we'll get to where I make a recommendation for people starting out, pick up the smallest project you can, but we'll get to that. So we can talk a bit about alternative benefits like revenue share, profit share. Be careful about this. If a game never gets, if a game never gets done, you're not going to get any revenue share, any profit share. If a game gets done and doesn't sell gangbusters, you're still not going to get anything. So just be careful. Any other thoughts other than that on revenue share and the like for alternative compensation?
My lawyer hat going on for a sec. If you take a profit share, don't look at it as profit, look at it as a gross revenue share. If your agreement is you'll take a share of net, it's a remarkably easy thing for an accountant to figure out, but the net profit ended up being exactly nothing.
Yeah.
They'll always find a way to say that some of that income had to pay an expense and that didn't include you. So get yourself put on the expense side of the budget, not on the profit side.
We'll also talk about contracts in a bit too, but very often contracts will say if you are let go, your contract is terminated before the game is done, then your revenue share does not vest. So you might have worked like 99% of the project, they let you go, you don't get any of that rev share. So there are a lot of things to worry about there.
do a lot of research on the client, right? So you want to make
Yeah.
sure, do they have a proven track record, or are their games successful? If it's their first project, you probably want to caution them not doing rev share at all.
Yeah, and those are the ones who always want to do rev share because they have no money. So that gets to my controversial take here. Don't ask for money up front. I know Chris is going to, going to disagree there, and that's fine. We can discuss this. But again, do your research. If you don't trust the client, if you've done the research and you're a little bit on the fence about it, there are other clients out there. Don't take that contract. It's going to be more headache than it's worth 9 times out of 10. So do that research.
The people who asked me for upfront were burned by previous clients who had them work and then never delivered on their payment. So it's understandable that they were asking for it upfront, but I got burnt in the process a few times by people who asked for the money in front but then disappeared on me. One of them, understandable, they got cancer, so they had to back out. But I eventually came up with a middle ground where I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay you hourly. You get work done hourly, you show me the proof, and then here's your hourly payment. And we'll continue month by month. And the contract was a year, and at the end of the year, we would renew the contract for an increased pay rate.
And that minimizes everybody's risk
Yeah.
at any given moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good approach.
There's another solution. It's called escrow, where you put the money in and the contract clearly states the terms at which, so they know the money's there, and the contract states when you can take the money back and when they can take the money. And that way they know the money's there, but they can't just take it right away and run. So look into that. It's always good to involve a lawyer when you're doing this. And you can find through the Small Business Administration, sorry.
Bless you. Anybody who says it's always good to involve a lawyer, I can't help but feel warm about that.
And you can find helpful lawyers for a reasonable price through the Small Business Administration. Yes.
So what if your client is international? It's like the client is in another country.
Lawyer.
Because it's like now they could stiff you, and then you have to go through their country's law.
Yeah. I mean, so do your research. Make sure that you're finding someone who you have pretty good confidence in that is reliable and trustworthy. Get that lawyer to look over the contract. Do some kind of escrow. And one thing I didn't mention here is if you're doing international work, you may have some international taxes or something to deal with, but often the biggest thing is the exchange rate between currencies. So it's just something to keep in mind. I mean, usually it's not that bad, but something to keep in mind.
So the escrow you can do in like an American bank?
Typically, yeah.
It can be difficult though, figuring out how to get the funds from, like I was doing work for a company in Finland, and it wound up being difficult to actually get the funds transferred. So wise helpful.
Yeah.
So it's an actual bank app as opposed to like Venmo or PayPal or something like that. Is a bank, and they will hold current. I think they have 150 different currencies. They can pay in whatever currency, and you can take out in whatever currency, and the exchange is very low. The exchange fees are very low, and it's only like a year or so old. But that's how we're paying international people, and vice versa.
Yeah, we'll get more into pricing. That is a great tip. So we'll go over this just very briefly because it's critically important, but something that you can do some research online, talk to a lawyer. So definite things that you want to have in writing. Find out if there's any kind of NDA or NDA restrictions. That's non-disclosure agreements. So, maybe you're not allowed to post about what you're working on, or you know what I'm talking about there. You want to get that contract or your agreement of work really down concrete to the most minute detail. Again, get a lawyer or legal assistant, someone to, who you can trust to really make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. The implementation plan is like the agreement of work, but you want to make sure that it is exactly clear what you're going to do, or at least you have a clear communication of how you will define that. So communication is the key to working as a freelancer. And another thing you need to make sure is in writing is invoicing. You can't just send them an email, say, hey, send me, $3,000. That doesn't work. Let's see. So use some kind of invoicing software that can, that can really keep track of this, like QuickBooks or something. Some contract caveats. I'm just going to blast through these because we're running a little bit low here, and I do want to talk about getting paid. As people have mentioned before, make sure that you define what work you need to do so you control that scope creep, and include in your agreement how you're going to control scope creep. So if they add more features, you need to have thought about how you're going to accommodate that. You can't just say, oh, I'll just do that for free. Make sure that you're really on the same page for those work expectations. This is the thing that gets everyone, apart from just people taking your money and walking away, of course. But if it's vague, or if it starts out clear, but things change, because things inevitably change when you're working on a game, work expectations will change. The client will say, well, I thought you were going to do this. And you say, well, this was my understanding of what you wanted me to do. Communication is the number one thing. Check if you need to be exclusive, if they will allow you to do other freelance contracts, for instance. All these things need to be handled in your contract. Yes?
There's a clause that often sometimes say something called non-circumvention with competitors. So essentially, after a certain amount of time after you complete this job with this client, you wouldn't be allowed to work with like somebody who can be classified as a competitor. So sometimes that could be like 3 months, so just until the project launches, or sometimes that could be like 3 years, which is an issue. So always be able to sit down for that.
A lot of the laws about this are changing, but
Yeah, that varies state to state. In California, that's not enforceable.
Yeah.
So that's where your client, if your client is in California, for instance, then it just depends. So
Yeah.
you check your state laws.
That last point is in constant flux. In the previous administration, the Federal Trade Commission announced that they were simply not going to respect non-competes at all.
yeah.
And at that time, FTC regulations had the equivalent power of law. Under the current administration, that's all been completely extinguished, and no one knows, state by state, what it means and what the validity of a non-compete is. And I agree completely with Tony's last point. If somebody comes to you with a non-compete, work for someone else. You cannot succeed as a freelancer with that hanging over your head.
Yeah. You don't have to take every contract. Do find out, are you going to get credit on the game? Can you use the work that you've done in your portfolio? Make sure that that's written out clearly. And your rights to the work. Like if let's say you write a library of code that is used in the game. Can you bring that code with you, or is that stuck their permission? So really iron out all these details. So again, I'm gonna blast through this next one here, and then we can talk about it. But when you're actually doing the work, so some points of discussion here. Communication. That's the key. And it takes constant upkeep. So you want to check in frequently, make sure that they're happy and that everyone's on the same page. Document, you don't need to use an hour tracking app necessarily, but document the hours that you worked for your own purposes so that you know how many hours you've worked, and you can better gauge future contracts, but also so that the client knows and so that they know what you've actually done. And do that on a fairly frequent basis. Don't be like, all right, this whole month I did this. No, they're going to worry about what you were doing during that month. So communicate. And you need to find a balance. You don't want to overwhelm them with the fine details of like, today I fixed this bug and I did this little bit of code. They want to know what kind of milestones you've hit or any roadblocks that you've hit. Try to beat those deadlines within under a 20% margin, not in half the time. If you can get your work done a little bit earlier than they expect, but not too much earlier, your client's going to be really happy and you're going to get good referrals. If you go over, especially when you go over, that tends to bleed into the next milestone. So then your next milestone is even later. So do try to work it out so that you get your work done a little bit early, give yourself some breathing room. But if you run into an issue, you're going to be running over, be upfront. Let them know right away. Because it's, again, all about communication. And if you're going to run over, maybe you just need to run over. Maybe you need to stop and say like, hey, I need a little bit of time. This is what's happening. I ran into this bug, or I ran into this issue with the game engine. Don't just like keep working for 16, 18 hours a day every day just to get it done. Your work is going to suffer. It's not just about like work-life balance, but your quality of work that you're delivering to the client is not going to be as good. And if things don't work out, be amicable about it. Don't burn bridges, because you can get bad referrals or bad testimonials as well as good. And even if something doesn't work out, you can still get a good referral out of it if, maybe that it was kind of like outside of your control. And especially if you handle that well and professionally, you can still get a great referral out of it. Any thoughts on this? Yes?
Back to the documentation hours, I would argue you do need to track them, but you track them at one level finer than whatever your contract. If you're getting paid by the week, track by the day. If you're getting paid by the day, track by the hour. Track by the hour, track by the minute. And so at that point, if you're tracking by the minute, you need a quantifier or something like that. But I would, you do want to have that because you want to show what you're doing. And also, more importantly, you need it for yourself.
Yes.
As somebody who does fractional work, like, oh, I thought I was spending half a day a week with this client, and it turns out I'm spending 2 days a week with this client. I'm not charging them appropriately, right? Or vice versa, this person is overcharging me, or I'm overcharging them because I'm not doing as much work as we thought I was going to be doing before them. That's going to wind up being a bad referral for me because they're being like, well, he just didn't deliver that much. Like,
yeah.
He didn't actually ask me for anything, but okay, I need to be proactive about saying, hey, give me more things to do. So the tracking is as much for yourself as it is for the client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just, I found even in a salary job, keeping track of what you do hourly is useful.
So for yourself, yes. Now, I would argue that if a client wants to know what you're doing hour to hour, don't hire on with that client because they're micromanaging you. They don't trust you.
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't be a contract if that was required.
Yeah. But for yourself, if you know what you're doing hour to hour internally, that's valuable data. Anyone else? Okay, last thing, how to get paid. So make sure you're using an invoicing system, and make sure on that invoice you say, this is my going rate, my ceiling, whatever you call it, and this is the discount I'm giving you, so this is your actual, this is what you're being charged. So you're really enforcing this, not only in the contract and in verbal communication with them, but on each invoice they see, hey, I'm getting $100 an hour quality work for only $50 an hour, or the next time they renew the contract, for 70. So make sure to put that on there. Use a tracking system. Don't just use like Microsoft Word to like type up an invoice. Use something where which invoices have gotten paid and which aren't. And for your payment terms for these, this might be a little bit outdated. This is an older slide, but give some kind of clear requirement in the contract and on the invoice saying like, I expect this invoice to be paid in 30 days or 60 days. That would be like net 30 or net 60. So they know when to pay. If you don't include that, they're not legally obligated to pay you within 30 days. They could be like, all right, I'll pay you next year. So make sure that's clear. And work out ahead of time how you're going to get paid. Wise, PayPal is, they take some fees and their exchange rates are not good internationally, but some people find it pretty easy to use. You can do ACH, the direct deposit. So yes.
Yeah, and just to find out on the ACH, if they're putting in your bank account information, and then you get 2 little transactions, and they ask you for those. No, don't do that. That is giving them access to your bank account. A proper ACH transaction through a regular system does not require you to confirm amounts. But I've had cases where somebody's like, oh, I'll just pay you through ACH, and they're like, okay, just tell me what those transactions were, and I'm like, yeah, no, that lets you withdraw money from my account.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you that if you go to your bank account. So just something to be really careful about, because you can set yourself up to be
Thank you.
really screwed.
Yeah. So if you have any expenses, let's say you need to buy a VR headset because you're doing VR games, make sure you document that. Keep the receipts for tax purposes. Hire an accountant, at least a bookkeeper, but hire an accountant to take care of this. Yes.
So I use Houdini Indie,
Mhm.
and I have a Maya version that I can research stuff, but I can't do any work. Houdini, and I'm not sure what the Unreal licensing is, but with Houdini, I can make up to $100,000 worth of work. Is that, do I need to be careful if I work for a company, even if I'm a freelance, so am I still under the $100,000 cap, or do I need to get a better license because I'm working on this project?
It depends.
It's true with Unreal.
Yeah, it depends on the license. Some of them are like that. Some of them you are a separate entity,
Yeah.
so you don't need to worry about that. But some of them do require that if you're working as a third party for a company that makes over that. So it depends on the license. Yeah, keep up on your bookkeeping. Don't just save it for the end of the tax year. Pay your estimated taxes. So if you go to the Small Business Administration, they will typically help you set this up. If you're just getting started, they'll help you set this up for free. They have free classes. Take advantage of that. And one minor thing to note, if you're just starting out and you're dipping your toes in this, if you make more than $600, you will receive in the U.S. a 1099-K form. So you have to declare this, and they will, whoever's paying you will have sent this to the IRS. So you can't just take it under the table. I have a couple templates here that are useful for like getting started. If you want to, take a photo of that. And again, these are things that you kind of want to run by an accountant or a lawyer, but they're a good starting place. Yeah, docontract.com is kind of like Do Press Kit, Rami Ismail's Do Press Kit, which makes a press kit for you through a website. Do Contract, you fill in some details, and it'll give you like a starting contract. Don't just use that contract, but it's a starting point that you can take to a lawyer. They can look through, make adjustments. You take to the client, make adjustments until you're happy, everyone's happy, and everything is set clearly. So that's what I have. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Yes.
Back on the contract stuff. If you deal with international, just keep in mind that exchange fees are going to be applied. Like one of the sound people that I hired for a project of mine worked out of Great Britain, and he lightly demanded that I pay in British pounds. So I had to budget for the exchange rate whenever that came into play.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a fee in the transaction. Yeah, it's not
Yes.
one to one.
So you're paying,
And not just a fee, but day to day, the exchange rates change.
The exchange rate itself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because if you offer $100, the equivalent number of British pounds is not what they're going to get. Whoever does the conversion is going to keep a piece, and that's, you
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
budget for that.
He did it to make sure his budget was on track and he was getting the same amount per month. But I had to make sure I had that breathing room on my budget. And then when I reported it to the IRS, I reported that as a business expense.
Yeah, that's smart. I didn't do that. So I've taken, like my most recent contract was with a company in Australia, and they wanted to pay in Australian dollars. So I just you know, my rate was okay. So I took the hit there for, you know, whatever the, you know, exchange rates were. But yeah, I should have taken a business expense there. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the input.